Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our TGT podcast, a show in which we're joined every single week to talk about the latest Arsenal fixture, although of course, because it is the international break, that does change things ever so slightly because there is no Arsenal game to talk about, but we are still going to provide you with plenty of Arsenal chat over the next 30 to 40 minutes or so. And to do so, what we usually do during the international break is, because there's no Arsenal game, which means there's no opportunity to get the members on for a preview show, it means we get the members on the podcast. So without further ado, let me introduce you my guests for today. First of all, it's my right-hand man of the members group. It's Vinny. How you doing, mate? Are you well?
Yeah, very well, thank you. And it's quite a nice international break this time because we went off with happy faces rather than being feeling down.
Yes, absolutely. I was just, Dave in the chat said, excellent show. I think Vinny's topped it. He's gone with the more recent blue one. I do have that as well. It was just, I wore that for six-a-side last week. So I was like, I'm going to change it up a little bit. And to be fair, we had this during lockdown, didn't we, this away shirt? So I never got to use it for six-a-side. So this is the first time, and hopefully it's going to go well. Saying that, and I don't like admitting this, but last time we played the team that we're playing tonight, we lost 14-0. Yes, genuinely. It was that bad. So fingers crossed it will be different tonight. Bailey's playing from the Arsenal way, so hopefully Bailey's goals can turn things around this evening. Also joined by Alex. How you doing, mate? Are you well? Are you good? I'm loving the Movember attempt, mate. It's looking excellent.
Oh, Lord. I've gone for a slightly different colour of top. I apologise. I should have known we'd been in blue. But, but no,
not everyone's got the memo, so it's fine.
No, but I can only apologise to the viewers for my attempt at facial hair. It's all for a good cause.
It is indeed. It is indeed. Lots of people. I know. I ran into Simon Collins a couple of weeks. I think it was not before the Leeds game, but before the Aston Villa game, obviously the Standard writer. And at that point, he hadn't yet shaved his beard, but I noticed that he'd been growing out a little bit. And then, if you follow Simon Collins on Twitter, you'll know that he's now shaved it off, so it's just a moustache. And it's Simon, that doesn't look good. So I'm wishing for a quick November for you, Simon, and for everyone else taking part in Movember. Someone who didn't get the Arsenal shirt memo, mainly because I didn't send one out, is King. How you doing, mate? Are you well? Are you good?
Yeah, I feel like an outcast now. Everybody got Arsenal.
I'm so sorry.
And then go plain white.
No worries, mate. You're repping the Dan Robert favourite colour of shirt, to be fair, as our closet Spurs fan in the Discord server. So that's how it goes. I'm only joking, Danny boy. I can see you in the chat box. How are you doing, King, though, mate? Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm looking forward for this stream, obviously. Having Vinny and Alex on, it's going to be good. And you, of course.
Yes, thank you ever so much for tuning in, guys. I've named this show. Yeah, I'm camouflaged as Jonathan. The irony is, if I was wearing green, I literally would be camouflaged and just blend into the back. Maybe I'll do that one time. You just see my floating head for one of these shows. But we named this show basically how likely it is, or what is the chances of Arsenal achieving top four, just to kind of kick off today's discussion. So chat box, do leave your thoughts and feelings about how you're feeling right now about Arsenal's top four hopes. But we're going to go to Vinny first, mate. Tell me, mate, how are you in terms of your confidence about Arsenal's top four hopes this season?
I think we got the squad to do it. You look around the rest of the Prem, and you look at Leicester, you look at Tottenham, you look at Man U, and their squads aren't much better than ours, if better at all. Like the signings we made in the summer was superb. Like every single player has added value to the team. Well, nearly all of them, except for maybe Tavares, Odegaard, are starting every week. So
he was starting at the beginning, wasn't he? So
yeah, and he's going to play games. I think the interesting thing with us is I think we've got a very good first team, and I think the question's going to be when we get into December and we got loads of games, how we're going to react when we start losing a few players, because the depth underneath our first team isn't as good. And I think that's the challenge. But the other teams don't really inspire me with confidence either in being consistent each week. So I think we've got every chance.
I think that there's a great opportunity with, as you say, with the squad that we've got this season. I mean, the difference, Alex, this season to last season, adding 6 players that we have added, and all of them are making, have had some form of impact. Odegaard, I think, or Odegaard, as Vinny likes to call him, of course, he's probably been the least impactful, but without him, we wouldn't have got those 3 points against Burnley. His pressing was really good in the North London derby and the game against Burnley and Norwich too. And then you've got Tavares, who's come in for an injured Tierney, something that last season left us with Granit Xhaka playing at left back. That's had a massive impact on our season. Lokonga's really stepped up in the period that Xhaka has been out, and now Partey's out too. He's stepped up there. You've got players obviously like Tomiyasu that we needed at right back. Ben White we clearly needed at centre back because there's a big step up's gone there. And Ramsdale, I mean, the amount of superlatives you can use to talk about Ramsdale this season. Do you agree with Vinny? Do you think that this squad is of a level that's necessary to challenge for a top 4 place?
I think that we certainly could challenge for a top 4. I think top 6 for me is almost a must in some ways for me this season, because I think that the amount of investment that's been shown in Arteta and the caliber of players that we've brought in to some extent, obviously maybe not massive names, but I think Tomiyasu has been outstanding. I think Tavares has done what he's needed to do, and and then you have Ben White, who obviously price tag wise, I think a lot of people maybe go one way or the other. But personally, I've thought he's been really good so far this season, and for a young defender who has a much higher ceiling than a lot of other players in our squad, I think there's no reason why we can't be challenging for the top 4. And you look elsewhere, you see a lot of teams are inconsistent, and I think that's where we need to keep this run going, is into the games where we're going to come up against better teams. So this game against Liverpool, I think, is going to be a real tell of where we really are, because if we can, I don't expect us to win, but if we can put up a fight at least, then it's going to be more than we've done in previous seasons.
It's very true. And I think that's certainly something, Alex, when you look at kind of the fixtures that we've got, the next 6 fixtures in particular, we're going to have a much better idea about kind of where Arsenal sit. And King, I suppose that brings us to the question that I want to go to you about. And in the chat box, Rod says top 4 discussions are premature. We'll know better after the next 5 or 6 matches. Liverpool, United, Everton, West Ham results in this stretch. Then we'll know our realistic hopes. Do you think the discussion of top 4 is too premature?
I mean, you can say it's premature.
Have you got a little one in the background?
Yeah, I did.
I thought you did.
It's not me, I promise. I think you can see the hand.
I can. I love this multitasking, parenting and podding. It's great. I love it. Go on.
They said men can't multitask. I'm trying to prove them wrong.
Very true, mate. Go on, son.
Yeah, but for me, obviously, you can say it's premature, but we can only go from what we've seen. And so far, we've seen a team that's brought in new players, and the players have performed. Now we're going to see how they perform against tougher oppositions. We're going to play Liverpool, Man United, and West Ham in a very short period. So we're going to see how they react to that. We're going to see how they react to the Christmas period, which is very intense. And you've heard a lot of foreign players before complain that the Christmas period is very intense, especially the first 2 years, because you're not used to it. But what is in our benefit is that we don't play in Europe. So even if we lack a bit of form, if we can keep up and not have a long distance, when your Leicesters, your West Ham, your Spurs, your United have to focus on Europe, we can only focus on the league. And I think that can help us.
Yeah, I think so. I'm really stuck by the fact now, in my mind now, King, I'm thinking I'm going to do in this 8 a.m. show when I'm in however many years' time, when I've actually got a little one with the missus. This is going to be me. I'm going to be doing the 8 a.m. show with the little one in my arms now, talking about the Arsenal news. It's just, I can just see that happening. It's just the way it's going to go.
I can give you the tips.
Please do, mate. Please do. We're going to dip into the chat box and see what you guys are thinking and saying about the possibilities of top 4. Let's kick off with Tom, who says, we had this discussion at the pub last week and I was adamant that our first 11 are the 5th best on paper, but definitely top 4 as a team. I think it's something I've said before. I think we do have probably the 5th best squad in the league behind United, who just are underperforming massively under Solskjaer, in my view. They've got a squad that should be up there with Chelsea's. I mean, you look at the amount of money spent on that team, you look at the individuals in that side, they should be doing better than they are. Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, obviously you go without saying, that have better squads. They've invested massively, but Arsenal's is the 5th best. So if we were to get top 4, it'd be a massive achievement and definitely an overachievement of what we can probably expect from us. But I like, Tom, how you point out there that our top 4 as a team is probably in that fourth spot above a team like United because they just aren't gelling together. Trini says, I'm confident. The question is, do the players have the desire to keep this momentum? Because if we have one bad game, I fear that they may not pick themselves up. I'm going to come back to that comment. Ed says, if we stay healthy, why not? Starting to feel like 15 and 16 when many big teams underachieved and Leicester snuck through just by being consistent. It's a really good point. And I mean, if I was talking to someone the other week, I think it was Bailey, saying that if we'd have had all of our players fit at the start of the season, say we'd accelerated plans to bring in Tomiyasu, Ramsdale and Odegaard into the team before the season started, we would have been in such a better position to take on Brentford and Chelsea and City. And if you never know, if we'd have, won the Brentford game and drawn the Chelsea game, we'd be joint top of the table right now, which is ridiculous when you consider the fact that those 3 games were seemingly it was such a disaster. And it really did feel like a disaster back then. Let me come back to that comment from, I think it was from Trini, Vinny. I love this, Trini for Vinny, talking about the idea of if we were to lose the next match against Liverpool, how much faith do you kind of have in not only the team, but in Arteta to re-galvanise the side, put that loss, because we are going to lose eventually, put the loss to the side and push forwards?
I think the big difference at the moment is the players are fighting for the shirt. Like, one of my mates is a United fan, and he went to the Arsenal game the other day, and he said that he was impressed against Watford because he saw every single player fighting for every single ball. And that's something that we haven't seen in the past. And this season is going to be inconsistent. We have a young team and fans need to be patient. Fans need to realise we're going to have big ups and downs. We're going to have games where we're going to be rubbish and we're going to struggle. But what we're seeing at the moment is we're seeing a side that's young, that's playing for the shirt, that's getting stuck into tackles and doing everything they can to try and win football matches. And yes, it's going to take time. Like, Lacazette coming into the teams have sort of solved the problem of linking the attack to the midfield up. But I think that problem's still going to exist going into the season. The good thing is at the moment, we're very good. It's that final third piece we need to work on. And you're not going to get consistency until you nail that. But I'm not worried about the heart of this team because I think we've got a team now that fights for the shirt. And that's something we've severely lacked in the past.
Yeah, I think the things that we've lacked, obviously, are depth. And you look back to last season and the Granit Xhaka situation at left back really cost us a run to the Europa League final. And to be honest, had we have had Tierney for that first leg away in Spain, we'd probably been in and obviously the striker situation with Will Smith-Rowe playing in that false 9 role, we would have been in such a better position. And now you look at the side and the depth is just so much greater than it was. I still think there are actually areas that we need to strengthen. And that's also another point that we'll come on to is how we use January to kind of strengthen our top 4 pedigree moving forwards. But a question from Matt who says, maybe a silly question, but could you clarify what you mean when you say challenge for the top 4? Does it mean in and around the top 4 for a season, but we may miss out by a point or 2? It's a good question. It's worth clarifying. I think to say that when you challenge for the top 4, you can either achieve it or you won't, but you still challenge for it. It is, I suppose, if you finish 1 or 2 points behind the top 4, you'd say you've challenged for it this season. I think it's you get to the end of the campaign and you can have an evaluation then when you went, yeah, if we didn't make it, we could have done, and we could have got into that top 4, but we just didn't pick up that 1 or 2 extra points. I'm interested. One word answer from you guys. How many points off of the top 4 would you have to say that we weren't challengers? Like how many? So you think back to Unai Emery's first season, we finished, I think it was just 1 point off top 4. You would say we were top 4 challengers that year. Last year when we finished 8th, I think it was only something like 6 or 7 points that we actually finished off the top. I'm just going to check that very quickly, but I'm sure it was only like 6 or 7 points that we were actually away from the top 4. I might be absolutely it was 6 points. We were 6 points off Chelsea, and yet we finished 8th in the table. So it's a very fine line. You say that we're 1, 2, 3 points, but just 3 more points, and you could be a top 4. So I mean, Vinny, just quickly, like one wordish answer: how many points off the top 4 are you to be a challenger?
3, but it's so tight, and that's why it's difficult to put a number on it. I don't think you can because it is always very close at the top, and it's just about them consistency in them little games.
Is a good answer. Alex, what do you make of that? How many points off the top 4 do you think, if you can put a number on it, that you'd have to be to be labelled a challenger?
I I've always thought 6 has always been
So
my.
did you think last season that we were top 4 challengers, being 6 points off Chelsea?
Only just, but it's only by points, and it's difficult because on the season you have the big 4 or the big whatever you want to call it, whatever season it'll be.
Yeah.
But then you have seasons where Leicester won the league, and then you could say, well, who was a top 4 challenger? I don't know. I suppose.
Yeah. The broad label of a team is when you start the season, you look at sides. Did anyone really put West Ham as a top 4 contender, a proper top 4 contender this season? But they're looking like that this year. So it's interesting how you label sides. King, how many points would you say to finish off the top 4 would it be?
For me, 4. But sometimes you also have to look how many teams are in between. So, for example, as you mentioned last year, there were so many teams that had a bigger chance to get into that top 4. Whereas if we would have finished, let's say, 5th, then you could say, yeah, but there was only one team above us. But when it's like 2, 3, 4 teams, I feel like you need to be at least 4 points. So at least when you come to game week 35, you still have an opportunity to get into that top 4.
I mean, if we'd have been 4 points off of the top 4 last season, we still would have only been 7th. That tells you how tight things are when you go into these races. It's crazy, and it's mad to think how close you can get and yet how far you are. I think it's really summed up quite well in the chat box. I think it was Dave that said 6 points sounds like a challenge, but finishing 8th definitely doesn't. And I think that's a completely fair analysis of that. Let's scroll up a little bit more and get some more reaction to this. Omar says, I think it is premature. We need to carry on doing what we are doing. Mitchell says, Man United favourites for that 4th spot as much as I hate them. And they're only favourites because of the squads, not because of their form, not because of their manager, just because of the players that are available to them. Now, Alex, let's talk about this January window, because how crucial do you think the January window is going to be for Arsenal in getting top 4? Because it's not a window in which you see lots of teams invest loads of money, but can you foresee Arsenal using that winter window to try and strengthen any challenge that they may have at that point?
I think we need to in some areas, personally. I think in the midfield, as much as I've thoroughly enjoyed watching Lokonga, obviously we've got Xhaka, El Neni, we've got Lokonga, we've got Partey, who's going to be off at the African Cup of Nations, and then and of course, he's gone.
Keep going.
Yeah, I'll keep going. Yeah, and I suppose. Yeah, I just think we need.
On my mouse. The back button on my mouse. Sorry, Alex. You were still going. You were so professional.
No, I wasn't. It was Vinny told me to keep going.
Oh, fair play. Thanks, Vinny. He's got my back. He knows what's going down.
Yeah.
Go on, mate.
Yeah. So I think I think we need backup mainly because whatever it comes in the form of, I think in some ways I prefer a loan over actually signing anybody, because obviously the market in January is so sort of, you don't know who's going to be available, you don't know the price tags and things like that. But then again, you've got players, we've talked a lot in the Discord server, there's players who are out of contract, and I noticed recently that Frank Kessie, who's AC Milan, who's a very, very good player, he's been linked with Spurs, and personally, I'd sign him just so Spurs don't, because he's. Obviously, that's not a reason to sign a player.
No, it absolutely is, mate. It absolutely is.
But when you look at, I just don't want Spurs anywhere near us at the end of the season. It will give me great pleasure. So I think, midfield, and then I don't know. I think striker is the only other position that I'd maybe look at, and that's mainly because for longevity purposes, you've got Aubameyang, who's he's performing better this season than he did last season, which it's not that difficult in fairness, but and then you've got Lacazette, who I believe is out of contract relatively soon, and I'd take him on a new contract, but that's different question. And then behind that, you've got Balogun, who really needs a loan move of some form, and then you've got Nketiah, who's strongly linked with moves away, and then after that, I mean, you've not got that much unless you include Martinelli in that. But yeah, I think it's an area that I would look to strengthen, and if a player was out there who we could sign permanently, I'd definitely go for it. Players like Vlahovic, but then again, it's price tag. I think that's the problem, is whether the board are all really willing to invest as they've shown already, but are they willing to continue investing, because that's what it's going to take.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you. There's a lot of positions on paper you look at and go, yeah, we need all of these, but we realise that the January window is not a period where you see a club make a massive overhaul of the team. I think it is going to be, again, from my perspective, and King, I'm going to get yours in a second. For me, I think it is going to be a little bit of a spring clean, bear the pun of it being the start of the year for Arsenal. It's going to be moving players out that need to be moved on, say Kolasinac bearing any of these injury issues that he might be facing. Eddie Nketiah we could see go. Balogun, I think, leads alone, but the problem with that is, and there's a piece coming out tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, I think, on this. Just kind of give my thoughts around the idea that you do have to, if you're Arteta or Edu, you have to pick between Nketiah and Balogun about who's going. You're either selling Nketiah and keeping Balogun, or you're loaning Balogun and keeping Nketiah for the rest of the 6 months of his season, because you can't, for my money, get rid of both, because we would leave us far, far too light in the striking position. So it's a tough choice. You either say, look, we're just not going to accept any bids for Nketiah, and Balogun's going to go get some important minutes on loan, and he's being linked with Middlesbrough in the last kind of 24 hours or so. So that could be somewhere where he goes. But West Ham are being linked with Nketiah. So there's a story there. So make sure you read up on that tomorrow morning. Let's go to Nico. Says a backup right back, a central midfielder, and maybe another centre back. Dan says we need to sign a midfielder for sure. If that is all, I'm happy. Let's go to Jahan, who says we need to hope that United don't sack Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and we have to have a good chance of getting into that top 4. Shahima wants to see Sant Maximan join in January from Newcastle. I doubt they'll be selling too many of their big players at the moment. And Yo says, I think it's less about the players coming in, but more about the players staying. If Laka, Nketiah, Pepe, Elneny, and Leno are off, then their replacements become important. King, what do you make of the January window and how you expect Arsenal to use it?
Well, I don't expect a lot to come in. I do expect maybe they will shift away someone like Elneny, because he's going to AFCON anyway, so he won't have any use for us in the squad, and he's not playing games. He's not even coming in. I mean, Lokonga and Elneny is above him. So I do think he will leave. I do think Balogun will go on loan. I do think it depends on what happens with Eddie Nketiah as well. And I do think Laka is staying. I think he's looking to stay to the summer and then get that sign-on bonus for free. So I don't think he's leaving in January, honestly. But I think it's a great opportunity to go and get someone like a Frank Kessie, who would improve us immediately. Also, maybe try and sniff to see what can happen with Sterling. If he would like to join us, if he would, then I would go and get in January. Because the thing is, paying 50 million for Raheem Sterling, if he comes, he would immediately improve the squad. And if we get that top 4, then we've already earned that money back and even more.
And if we don't, we're screwed. I agree with you. I think that people have really overlooked someone like Raheem Sterling quite quickly. They're very quick to kind of compare him to, say, I don't know, other wingers in the Premier League that are more consistent, can scorers and that. But I think it's not as simple as that. Raheem Sterling is someone who's still, he's approaching his prime in the Premier League. He's not. I think he's only 26, 27 still.
Yeah, he's 26, turning 27.
Yeah, so
and if you look past the last season, he's probably been top 4 wingers for 3-4 years in the Premier League. He's been scoring goals for fun, creating, and the thing what I like with Raheem as well is that he works hard, he runs into the channel, and he can play in multiple positions. And with that experience, I don't know, how can we overlook a player with his quality and CV where we are at now? I don't understand that.
Yeah, no, neither do I, mate. It does stagger me sometimes when you see, say, these links come up and they pop up in your timeline and they're to a player of Sterling's pedigree and quality, and you see the replies to it. No, no, thank you, not good enough. And you're like, what are you wanting? Like, we're not getting the Mbappes of this world. It's not going to happen. And if we are linked with, a 50 million move for a Raheem Sterling, that is a genuinely good move in my mind. I haven't asked you, Vinny, yet about the January transfer window and how you think it could be used to sustain a top 4 challenge. So tell me your thoughts on it.
I agree with King there. The two
I could see
players
it
I'd be interested in is Cassie and Sterling. I think people are stupid who turn their nose up at Sterling. Sterling's quality, and he's been brilliant for Man City for years. He's a winner. He's got experience. And the thing is, people say, "Oh, but what about Emile Smith-Rowe? What about Saka?" That's a really stupid argument. You need depth. Man City win the league because they have depth. They have Sterling on the bench. They have Mahrez on the bench. They have Grealish on the bench at times. That's how good their depth is. We can't just be a team where we have a first good 11, and then if one player comes out, we're screwed. You need that depth. I think Sterling would be the perfect buy and a steal as well. And I think there's a chance of it because if he's not playing, he's not going to play in the World Cup. So for me, I'd be banging on the door now and trying to get Sterling and say, look, we're going to play you week in, week out. You're going to get a chance and you really improve our team.
The thing is, for me, is you look at sides like City. They had this kid called Foden that we're all very much aware of coming through the ranks. And he doesn't start every game, but he's easily good enough to start for every single team in the Premier League without a doubt. And Smith Rowe and Saka have the potential to be that good. I don't think they both start for a City or a Liverpool over Salah and Mane right now. Maybe Smith Rowe in form starts a bit over Mane now and again, but week in, week out, they don't. At the end of the day, if you're able to add someone of Sterling's quality to the team, then you can do that. And he doesn't have to start every single game. I know there's this focus on when Arsenal spend 50 million compared to when City spend 50 million is different. And there's a point to that. It certainly is. But in this market, 50 million pounds is different to what it was, say, 6-7 years ago. And I think that Arsenal also can look to say, bring in Sterling at 26, add him to that forward line. And you've got a player there that's going to last you for at least 4, possibly even 5 more years. It's a 5-year investment, to be honest, of 50 million pounds in him. Go on, Vinny.
You don't burn out your players then either. It gives Emile Smith-Rowe a rest. It gives Saka a rest. But that rotation of a front four of Smith-Rowe, Saka, Odegaard, Sterling is quality. That is really, really good. And that will give us a chance to challenge on multiple fronts rather than just having a good 11 and then we burn out when we play twice a week.
I was we did a show on the Arsenal Way with John Cross the other day, and he was talking about how he wants to see Smith Rowe move back to the number 10 position over Odegaard. And I disagree personally. I want to see Smith Rowe continue on the left hand side while he's scoring goals and he's in form. But it's not to say that in the long term that moving him back to the number 10 position can't be something that we try, even if we say bring in a Sterling. Because if you develop Smith Rowe on the left to add to kind of his goal scoring abilities, when you do move him back to the middle, or you play him in the middle, those traits that he's learned on the left hand side are going to be really useful when he does move over. To kind of also, go on, King. Sorry, go on.
If we look at West Ham last year, they brought in Lingard. I promise you, nobody was expecting Lingard to do as well as he did. But he's another player who's played at the highest level, who's performed both for national and club side, who has that experience. And look how much he helped West Ham to kick on. A player like Sterling can do similar to us. Like people, sometimes when a player loses form, it's like people think that they're not good anymore. Sometimes it's just a mental thing, or you just need a change of environment. And that's why, for me, you can't turn down someone like a Sterling. He's too good. His
base level quality is of a standard that you can't turn that kind of level down. Vinny, go on. I feel like you're going to jump in.
I was going to say he's homegrown as well. And I think come the summer, Chambers is probably likely to leave. Like, you want Niles to leave. I don't want Mainsley to leave.
And Katia.
But all of these players are homegrown, and we need to think about the homegrown quota. So it may be something that we need to invest in rather than someone like a Gooner or whatever that someone said in the chat a minute ago, because you need a homegrown base.
I disagree with FT in the chat. I don't think you can compare Raheem Sterling and Willian's situations. They are very different in terms of their age. Sterling, 26. Willian was, 32 when we bought him, maybe even 33 when we got him. So it's a very different situation. Also, Sterling's base quality is it's just different. Go on, Alex.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I saw that comment as well. I think when you consider that Sterling and Nicolas Pepe are the same age, to me, that's always just been outrageous. Because when you look at their like career path, I mean, you can say what you want about Pepe being really good in the French league, but you look at Sterling, he's proven himself time and time again in the Premier League, regardless of the last couple of years, maybe haven't been up to his previous numbers, but he was talked about as one of the best wingers in the world when he was sort of 24. And yeah, I don't think you can compare Willian, who's sort of 6 years down the line, to where Sterling is. And he would be a great role model and someone who Arteta has worked with before as well. So he knows the qualities he can bring. And when you consider the mentality of the players that have been brought in with Tomiyasu, with Tavares, with Ben White, I trust Arteta's judgment on what a player's personality is and what their mentality is. And if he thinks that Sterling would be, or if the links are there and he thinks that he's worth signing, then I don't see any reason why we shouldn't. And very briefly, to touch on Frank Kessie, I saw somebody in the comments say about him being away for the Africa Cup of Nations, but I agree completely. However, he's not someone you're looking at necessarily for cover in January. He's a long-term solution who could eventually replace somebody like Thomas Partey, and be sort of the next. And his potential is just sky high. And I don't really see many better players of his age at his position.
I think you raised a really good point about Kessie. I think, look, 6 months left on his deal. Yes, I think that there is certainly credible rumours that he's looking for a big payday, and going from Serie A to the Premier League often gets you a very decent payday. The wages are very different. So I'm sure that there would be not too many issues in trying to secure a deal. In that sense, it's going to be the competition for his signature that we're going to find the issues with that. But he's a very good central midfielder that's got a lot of potential still. I wanted to raise Akut's point. I think it's a really positive one. Sterling's got the connection with Arteta. Arteta has been credited by Sterling as well previously of the work that those two did together at Manchester City. So I think that in itself is a really solid point and one well made by Akut. Tony says people forget Raheem's rise at City was credited down to Arteta. Nico saying Raheem Sterling's XG is 2.06. That's a guaranteed goal each game. Bring him in and splash the cat. That is a ridiculously high XG for a winger. That 2.06 is unreal levels of expected goals for those that aren't really in the know about that sort of thing. XG expected goals, the likelihood of a player scoring in each game to be 2.06 is silly. It's silly levels. Final point that I wanted to kind of go on to before we get your overall prediction about whether or not you think we'll make the top four this season, is to do with the Liverpool game, which comes up next. King, I'm going to start with you on this, mate, and then we'll go around. How influential is this away Liverpool game in our hopes for getting top four? And what I mean by that is, do you think that you can talk about the performance, the result, the match result, whatever? How much of a bearing does this single Liverpool game have on our hopes for top four?
I think it's massive. You can just look at West Ham last week. It sends a statement when you play well against the Big Six. People look at you like, okay, this season, West Ham, they are not about. They are really up for it. So if we go to Liverpool, even if we don't win, let's say we get a draw or 1-0 loss, but we play really well, we look solid defensively, teams are going to look at Arsenal and be like, you can't bully them anymore. Look what they did when they went to Liverpool. So in that perspective, I think it depends on how we perform against them. That will send the message that we are here and we are not joking.
Vinny, how important is this Liverpool game in the race for a top four for Arsenal?
I don't think it's massively important. I agree with King. It'd be a big statement if we can go there and get a result. But if we do lose, we've got to bounce back. And that's the statement. The statement is, when you get knocked on your ass, do you get back up and start fighting? And that's what we need this team to do. We can't fold like we have done in the past. I want this team to show character, go there, compete with Liverpool, hopefully get a result. But if we don't, we need to pick up the next game and we need to win the next game.
Fair play. Alex, lastly, on Liverpool, how key is this game for Arsenal's top 4 hopes?
I don't think it's make or break. I think, like both the officers said, it will be a big statement. But, I'm quietly thinking that we might well stun them in the same way that we have done in the first half of a lot.
I love
of
the blind
teams.
confidence. It's great.
But you've got to. You've got to have confidence, especially given our form, and obviously their form's been fantastic. But I think in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's that important. However, to continue the momentum that we've got coming out of an international break would be really big in that sense. I don't think necessarily the game is that important, but I think the momentum it could provide in long term.
Massive. It'd be massive, wouldn't it? It'd be absolutely huge. And I think what you raised there is probably where I sit, is that the match result in itself is only, for me, influential in our top 4 race if we win. Because if we win against Liverpool, the momentum that brings, as you say there, Alex, is huge. That's why I think if we lose this game, I don't think it's as much of a bearing, because there's no pressure on us to go to Anfield and win this game. There's all the pressure is on Liverpool to turn around the 2 games that they've gone, drawn against Brighton, lost against West Ham. All the pressure is on them. And we have, it sounds crazy to say we have nothing to lose, because obviously there is 3 points to lose. But I think theoretically Arsenal have nothing to lose, and they can go there in the knowledge that they can come away from that game if they've put in a solid performance and still maybe not come away with anything, and just move on to the next one, because they've got another opportunity against, I think, Newcastle to turn things around the week after. So I think what you said there, Alex, is really strong about kind of what it would do from a winning perspective. But as Omar says, it's a free hit for me. Just give our all, even if we lose. I wouldn't say it's entirely a free hit, because I think the performance is also important. If we go and get battered like we did at the Etihad, that could be a bit of a problem. But I think it's a good, Vinny, measuring stick for us of where we've kind of progressed in that time.
We beat them. We go above them. That's crazy.
I know. It's mad, isn't it? It's crazy when you consider where we were, bottom of the table, 3 games in, and we sit 3 points off second place with the ability to go above Liverpool. And what's even crazier is I still get people putting Arteta out into my chat box. It's crazy. So lastly, to finish off the show, what I am going to say is just to give me a simple yes or no, baseless prediction with no ramifications of you getting clipped and memed whatsoever. Vinny, I'll come back to you and start first. Do Arsenal get top 4 this season?
Maybe.
No, that's not the answer.
Let's go yes. I think we can.
Alex.
Reckon we win the league.
Are you serious? Or I have to check sometimes.
Yes.
Lovely stuff. King.
Why not? You have to dream. What's the point otherwise? Let's enjoy while it lasts. So let's say yes. We can.
We've got these 6 games against Liverpool, Newcastle, United, Everton, Southampton, and then is it West Ham, I think, after that? If that's correct, that's a mad mem. I think it might be Leeds, actually, not West Ham at the end. But King, it's those games that are going to tell us, isn't it?
100%. In 1 month time, if you have a podcast, we will all know more about this team, about Arteta. I want to see how he reacts when we start losing, if he's going to change tactics, is he going to change formation, is he going to change the players? That's where I want to see, because I do think that the mentality of the players is good. They will give it, but will he be afraid or will he believe in the team? That's where I am with Arteta now. I want to see how he reacts.
Brandon says no. Thabo says yes. Omar says no. Robert says no. Clement says yes. Anna Deep says no. Dan just simply says top 4. I agree with Alex. We win in the league. There you go. Nicola, I'm not surprised if we're getting clipped. It's all it is a bit of fun. Josh says no. Igbo says yes, only if we strengthen in the midfield in January, which is not a bad point, to be fair. Robert saying fingers crossed for 6th place. I said at the start of the season, top 6 was was the expectation. If Arsenal get top 6 this season, I'm happy. I'm content with that. I won't be disappointed if we miss out. I might be disappointed, say, in the last game and we're in 4th place and we screw it up. I might be disappointed then. But it's a case of me where we have the 5th best squad in the league, top 4 for an Arsenal side that have finished back-to-back 8th place seasons where there was no confidence in this team or in Arteta whatsoever or in the signings that we made. Let's be real. When we were bringing in Ramsdale for 24 million, bringing in Ben White for 50 million, the mood was not one amongst the Arsenal fan base that we were going to be getting top 4. Let's be absolutely honest about that. So the idea that we could and are still talking about this in November is impressive. Vinny, go on.
Yeah, I think the fact that we're even talking about it is really positive. But yeah, I had to turn off the Discord at the start of the season.
Well, because Zamir, it was Zamir, wasn't it? That's what it was.
Too negative, Pep light. But like, I was never one for calling Arteta out. I saw the mitigating circumstances of the first 3 games, and I'm just delighted we're turning it around and better than I could have even imagined. Just the fact that we're so solid at the back now and we have a base to move forward from is just so positive. But the fact that we're talking about top 4 is just a joy. And as you said, top 6 is a good season. Get back into the Europa League is a good season. Top 4 is a dream.
Yeah, and people will turn around and say, look at those Arsenal fans talking about Arsenal saying that top 6 is a good season. It's about perspective. It's about context of seeing where we are, where we've fallen, the work that's being put in to try and turn things around. And hey, I have empathy for people that very much still would say Arteta's not the man for the job, because after Villarreal, I was where you are. I'm seeing the evidence to change my opinion, to turn things around. I need to see more, and the next 6 games are going to be absolutely crucial in where my opinion ends up by Christmas. But I can't criticise the last 10 games, bar some inconsistencies in performances, because we've seen some really good stuff going forwards. So to be where you think back to this time last year, I think we were 16th in the table and really looking at it being let's stay up, not looking ahead to top 4. So it's mad how things have changed.
Is it fair to say?
Go on, King.
Tom, is it fair to say that a new manager who's inexperienced, that you're gonna have to give them time because they're not gonna get it right from the beginning?
The answer is no, if you're a Chelsea fan, because Lampard wasn't given time and the replacement they brought in won them the Champions League. So the argument from that side would be, no, you don't have to give a young manager time. However, you can and you may benefit from it, which is what maybe Arsenal are doing now. So I would say that it's multifaceted, the answer. I don't think it's simply yes or no. I think you have the choice. You either say, no, this isn't acceptable. That's what Chelsea did. They went and got in Thomas Tuchel and won the Champions League. Or you say, no, I'm going to stick by this. I'm going to take a risk. It may backfire, as it did probably for Unai Emery, because I know he wasn't inexperienced, but we kept going with him for probably far, far too long, and he lost the dressing room and he got worse way before it was ever going to get better, and it probably wouldn't have done. With Arteta, the board's turned around and said, no, we are behind him. And all the information I have is that at no point have the club ever thought about considering sacking Arteta. They've been behind him the whole way. Vinny, I know you wanted to jump in, so go on.
I think towards the end of last year, I understand why a lot of fans were being really negative and were really fed up. But I think the way the team's playing at the moment, we need as a fan base to get behind this team. And the team relate a lot more to the fans as well, which is great this year. But as a fan base, we need to get behind the team, and we can't jump on them as soon as we have a negative result. We need to try and be level-headed and get behind them and be positive and back them and move forward. And then let's judge towards the end of the season where we are. And if we are struggling, then maybe Arteta has to go. But let's give him a chance. Let's not just jump on him.
Yeah, absolutely. Go on, Alex.
I add one thing.
Go for it. No, shoot, mate, shoot.
Just to add on to what Vinny's saying, for those of you that don't know, I study sports coaching. And always say it,
he's an expert.
But so I do football coaching, and my current research project is on collective team mentality and collective club mentality, and how that affects overall performance of a club. And I think that this is the first time in a very long time that we have a lot of members of staff and members of playing staff who are all pulling in the same direction. Where we've had agents and we've had unnamed people who weren't necessarily having the best interests of the club at heart. So I think that the most important thing for me is that we're all pulling in the right direction, and I think that everything that is, all the papers and all of the academic journals that I've read so far have said that it makes a positive impact on the club, and I think that's one thing that we can see over the course of the last few games, and hopefully we can keep that going. So
Absolutely. I've just saved King's dignity, I think, just a second ago. Fine, I was on it. I got him out of here. I'm sure King will join back in a second when he's sorted out. I love the fact that he's parenting and podding at the same time. It's just, that's good quality, that is. Anyway, let's wrap things up and we'll move on to, obviously, the next show, which will be tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. And we'll be discussing, of course, all of the latest Arsenal news, as always. Next weekend, they'll be back to the usual scheduled broadcasting. Hopefully, probably Monday evening will be the podcast. It's my birthday on Sunday, and I might actually here for that. So there won't be a reaction show to Liverpool because I'm going to be in and around London for the game. So there won't be a show then, but I'll make sure that there's lots of content coming up to it, and we'll be doing the preview show, of course, with the members ahead of the Liverpool game, probably around Thursday. So I look forward to bringing you all of that, and of course all the 8 a.m. shows in between. I'd like to take a massive thank you to my members. Chat box, if you could show them some love, we would really appreciate it. First of all, to King, of course, couldn't join us at the end of the pod, but really appreciate the time King gave us as well. Vinny, always a pleasure, my man. Really appreciate you jumping on.
Thank you very much. Yeah, absolute pleasure to be on with Alex and King and yourself. And I hope you don't get battered tonight, mate. Don't do a top move.
Yeah. One of the things I've asked for the birthday, which is going to have to be kind of, because they're quite expensive, is a joint thing, is a GoPro, because I'd really like to just set it up and show you how bad I am at football. So that's something I've definitely put on the list. So fingers crossed that comes through. That might be an entire family pulled together to get that in. But no, Vinny, thank you so much, mate. And tell people where they can find you, of course.
Sexy Bald Man on Instagram, of course. But
there you go.
Thank you, everyone in the Discord. Have a good evening.
Absolutely. Alex, thanks so much, mate. Really appreciate your time. Tell people where they can find you.
I don't actually have many other social media.
They can find you in the Discord server.
You can find me in the Discord server. Smash the like button on the video, and join. It's a great community.
I train them well. I train them very, very well. They know exactly what to say. Thank you so much, Alex and Vinny. Go on, Alex.
Worries. I was going to say I got the script from you.
You're not meant to say that. It's not the way it goes. No, thank you so much, guys, for coming on. Really appreciate your time, and a massive thank you to King as well. You'll be able to find him in the Discord server, as well as Vinny and Alex and all of the regulars you see coming on the show, and plenty others as well, who are just, the confidence isn't yet there for them to jump on the channel. But I look forward to inviting even more debutants on as the season continues. If you'd like to join our Discord server, then all you need to do is become one of our expert members or TGT ambassadors. Link to that is in the description. It's a really good community that we're building there, and full of some really friendly faces as well, that people genuinely talk about football 24/7 with how we're so global with that community. And of course, if you're not, that's absolutely fine too. You're welcome in the chat box always, every single show. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, up the Arsenal.